It's been in the news lately about, obviously we're still on a lockdown for the coronavirus. The courts are trying to carry on their business as best they can. And the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court has heard, I'm not sure they've already heard them or they're going to hear telephonic arguments.
They're going to hear them.
Yeah, I didn't think it had come up just yet, but that's an interesting, it seemed to me that was an interesting approach to having an argument in the age of video. And I know that the court is famous for not allowing cameras in the Supreme Court courtroom, but it kind of seemed like maybe this was the time to have a Supreme Court oral argument over video. And we've seen the Texas Supreme Court lead the way on that by having a Zoom argument. What do you think about video in the U.S. Supreme Court? Would this have been the right time to do it? And why do you think the court is still holding steadfast to not doing video?
Well, I think the idea of having a telephonic argument in the U.S. Supreme Court, it's just not going to go well. I mean, maybe it will because the lawyers are so good and the justices are good and everything. But the sort of unique aspect of the Supreme Court is that often the advocate is not really arguing to the Supreme Court. What you're really doing is mediating a discussion between the justices because they've never talked to each other before about the case. When they sit up there, that's the first time they've had any interaction with each other about your matter. And so they're talking to each other and you're just kind of there directing traffic. I don't know how you do that on phone. Like when I was up there, I would see Justice Breyer sort of sit up to ask me a question. And then on the other side, Justice Alito was wanting to say something. And so you'd look at Chief Justice Roberts and he would kind of figure out who to, turn to. And then you'd have to remember that Alito wanted to talk. So you had to go back to him. I don't know how you do any of that on the phone. And I don't know how they're going to handle it. I know that they're going to think really hard about that question. So, so maybe they'll come up with some answer. But I think just as an advocate, it's impossible. So I think video would have been way better. Obviously, the problem is they don't want to be on video. They don't want their faces in public. They don't want to be recognizable. And they, maybe sensibly think that people will sort of try to hot dog if there's video recording of these arguments. I don't think it's a problem. As all of us watch the Texas Supreme Court, it's never really happened, as far as I can tell, that people try to make rhetorical points so that they can get it on video. But the U.S. Supreme Court is very conservative about that. So I don't think they're going to be doing it.
I figure they'll probably do rotary phone for their phone arguments. Got to dial in with the clicks, maybe call the operator, have them patch you in.
Yeah. Oh, that's certainly going to be happening.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation about, how's the traffic going to be directed on a call like that. And I would hope that, in light of how things have gone with other, at least state high courts, with Zoom arguments being really pretty successful, that the U.S. Supreme Court would rethink that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to wait for all this to pass and resume handling arguments in person, just like they always have. It does seem to me, though, Raffi, that we're kind of in a place where we're adopting some technology in a way that lawyers haven't been forced to do up until now. We're having Zoom hearings, Zoom oral arguments. It seems like it's a good opportunity for courts to adopt technologically, and it's just unfortunate that if the Supreme Court, if the concern really is that they don't want people to grandstand, I mean, you can look at the Texas Supreme Court, we're not seeing that. And so maybe you're right. Maybe it is that they just don't want to be publicly recognizable. And that's a shame because, I mean, they're extremely important figures in American society.
Well, and then put on top of that, the other problem, which we were just discussing, which is that it is nearly impossible to get a seat in the Supreme Court to come watch one of the three branches of the American government function. You have to go, if you're not part of the bar, you have to go camp out there for a night or two in important cases. It's, they used to allow even people, you could hire people to go sit in the line for you. I think they've eliminated that, but nonetheless, there is no other way to get at the Supreme Court other than literally showing up in Washington or hearing the audio that they release on Fridays. But that's not the same as, being in the court itself. I'll just give a quick story from my experience. I didn't realize that Justice Thomas and Justice Breyer chat the whole argument, and they do that constantly. I went to several arguments to get ready. I went to Washington a week in advance, and I went to all the arguments that there were that I could get to. And they chat. Justice Thomas seems to give Justice Breyer notes throughout the argument. Some people have said that those are questions that Thomas would like Breyer to ask on his behalf. So if you don't get that understanding, there's no way to get that from the audio, because you can't see in the audio them leaning back and, jabbering or chuckling or whatever else they're doing. So there's that. And then there's some things you miss on the audio that are really heartwarming. So I think this was reported in the Supreme Court press, but Justice Thomas holds Justice Ginsburg's hand when they leave the bench and takes her down the steps and takes her to the back because she's, frail. And that's just a really nice moment that I don't think people would get from the fact that they're ideological opponents or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they're supposed to hate each other, I take it from Twitter. But in fact, it's just a very gentle moment that I think people would like to see and like to have some faith that the government is made up of people who are trying to work together. So there's a lot of things missing from the fact that we can't see these justices. I understand the countervailing arguments. It's just there's some strong arguments on that side too.
It makes me wonder now if the long hypotheticals come from Justice Thomas on a note instead of actually Justice Breyer himself.
Well, they're small notes.
Oh, okay, so it must not be. Those are original.
Yeah.
Or why Justice Thomas doesn't just ask the questions himself,
right?
As he's known for not speaking during argument. Seems like it'd be just as easy to ask himself. But these are things that we will never know, I assume.